There are secrets out there, guys, performance marketing secrets, and knowing just one or two of them can light up your funnels. Let's go. This is Performance Marketing Insiders. I'm Chris Mechanic. Join me as we go deep into the secrets of the world's elite marketing minds. Performance Marketing Insiders is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the AI-driven performance agency that makes you smarter. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Performance Marketing Insiders. I'm really excited to talk with our guest today. She is an absolutely amazing marketer and an amazing leader with over a decade of experience in education, marketing, and sales. And she actually created and led the Connected conference for several years. She oversees currently all aspects of marketing at her current company, where she has ascended the ranks over the last 10 years all the way to CMO. So she's currently CMO of EAB. She is Lia Davidson. Welcome to the show, Lia.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So excited to have you. We have tons to talk about today, and I want to be cognizant of your time, of course. And you know our audience is all about secrets. So why don't we start off? Just tell us what one of your best kept secrets to success in marketing has been over the years.
Sure. It sounds so conspiratorial. I'm happy to share one of mine, though. I've actually over my career reflected on a bit of a framework for how to think about and how to bring up marketing talent. And I call this the marketer's compass. So the concept is I think marketers today need to be able to operate in a number of distinct planes, if you will. So imagine a compass, north, south, east, west. I think there's parallels for each of those directions. So on the y-axis, if you think about it, I think great marketers are able to vacillate between vision setting, what I call the clouds, and being in the trenches, in the absolute details and weeds of whatever work they are doing. So think about the weeds of copywriting, the weeds of data analysis,
right?
The inside of marketing technology. You have to be able to be at 5 feet, but then on the next day or the next hour, go back up to 100,000 feet and set a vision, define a brand, push or pull an organization through innovation. So I think the north and south of the marketer's compass, both are equally necessary. On the other axis, the x-axis, if you will, think about east and west. I think about left and right brain thinking. And even at the beginning of my career, one of the reasons why I was drawn to marketing was the idea that, hey, I can do deeply analytical work and be in math and in numbers and in systems design, but also be super creative, whether that's coming up with a campaign or writing. And I've always loved to write, or designing something from scratch. I think it's a left and a right brain discipline. So that's kind of one of my secrets, is this idea of the marketer's compass. And I think that the best marketers are really able to go back and forth and up and down and across the compass, if you will.
I love that. I mean, we like frameworks in general, but I absolutely love that. I love the, I mean, I hadn't heard that right before just now.
I mean, I made it up.
But I love the directionality of it. Like once you said, hey, north and south is like 30,000 feet versus deep down in the weeds, I immediately fell in love. I didn't know what left and right was going to be, but it makes perfect sense to be left and right brained. So I absolutely love that framework, and I can see a lot of applications for it, but how do you use it? Like, do you use that more for recruiting and like growing talent, or do you use that to sharpen your own skill set by saying like, hey, I haven't been down at the 5-foot level for a minute. Like, let me log into Marketo and see what's going on in there.
A couple of ways. I mean, one is definitely when I'm thinking about senior marketing talent, and just thinking about, who the next leaders are going to be, and just evaluating strengths and opportunities and how to coach people and where people might need to grow. So that's one way, but I also find it an interesting way of just on reflecting on the busyness and on the kind of different types of work that I'm doing in any given day. I mean, within the first 3 hours of a morning, I could have been in all 4 of those quadrants in 4 different meetings. And so I think it's just an interesting way to kind of step back and say, is the marketing discipline for me? And if you love each of those 4 quadrants, you're probably going to be successful. And it doesn't mean you can't be successful if you are a superstar in 1 or 2 of them. But at some point, you may need to evaluate growing into some of the other quadrants.
I see. So, with your own teams, would you say that you tend to like kind of round people's skill sets out around that compass, or are you more of a believer in like double clicking on your strengths and don't worry so much about your weaknesses?
A little more of the latter. Like I have some extremely talented marketers on my team that are talented in very, very different ways. And they complement each other really well and they work
Yeah.
together really well. So if you're thinking about a high performing team or a cross-functional project or initiative, you could have someone who's great in the East and great in the West coming together. And that's going to be an awesome project or initiative. So I don't always, think about, hey, everyone has to have all 4, but I do think that they are kind of the keys to successful marketing in parts, even if you're pulling different people together.
Wow, I'm thinking about this framework, Leah, and it's like almost meta because you could apply it to an individual or to a team.
Yeah, totally.
We use the DISC assessment here, like a
Yep.
personality profiler.
I am familiar.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so when that's basically just one of these personality tests, and you can take it, and it will tell you, your characteristics and your communication styles. But we have a consultant that we hire that like once every couple years, basically everybody will do it, and he'll tell us how to read it. But he also plots everybody.
Yep.
You've been through this exercise, like
Yeah,
the
through
entire team.
multiple versions and different expressions of these tests. Yes.
But it reminds me
Cool.
of this a lot because there's one group view which I think is more of the values. I think it's more of the values. Like you want to see clusters with like people in the same place values wise. Like if it's a utilitarian, I think they use for kind of like performance focused. Like if you like having a lot of those types of folks, having a cluster in those areas is good, but there's another area of that circle where having variety is better.
Yeah.
So I could see that being really useful for marketing leaders just in terms of like evaluating their own teams and plotting it out, because in a perfect world you could always hire that individual that is sort of unicorn like and can be high and low and left and right at the same time. But at the very least, you want those skills present on your team.
Right.
So I guess you probably do that.
Well, I think I've evolved to reaching sort of a way to articulate this framework. I didn't necessarily have the language around the idea for years. I think I've had the ideas in my head, but not the language and not the metaphor. But I think so. And I think that high-performing teams have so many distinct individuals in it. And I also think it matters what tenure and what level you're at in an organization. When you're just starting in something, you need to be really gifted and a really gifted executor at that one thing that you're doing. And then over time, you grow into other things and into managing and leading people. And so, again, I think it has a lot of different applications. And for me, I do like to think about senior talent through this lens.
This is one of the coolest frameworks I've ever heard about, and I'm not just saying that. Like
well, you heard it here first. If I ever write a book,
I was just gonna say, I think there's a book here, Leah. I think you could make the DISC assessment for marketers. Like, there's a whole business plan here.
Yeah.
Let's partner up. Let's do it as a side hustle.
I need to find a few free minutes in the day before that happens.
Right? You're like the busiest person in the world. So let's talk about EAB a little bit. I'm slightly familiar with it just because like we know Vista fairly well and we work with a lot of Vista companies. But I see that you've been there for a long time. It looks like you were brought on as head of marketing and you were recently made CMO around 6 months ago per LinkedIn. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's not quite the full history, but I have been here for 11 years. This time around, I was at the predecessor company, the advisory board, which many people in the DC area will know, as my first job out of college. So there was some familiarity with the leaders at the company from when I first started working and took a pause for a significant period of time, and then came back. And actually, I came back to launch a product as a salesperson, which was a failed experiment. I'm not the world's best salesperson, but that's a story for a different time.
Yeah. Well, so talk to us so far around your since you've been CMO, has it been a big change in your role, or is it like pretty much many of the same responsibilities with just a new title? Like, how's the last 6 or so months been?
It's more of the latter. I've been in the kind of leading the marketing organization for a little over 3 years now.
Okay.
So I took the reins as the head of marketing without the CMO title right before the pandemic. So it was little did I know then, but it was an interesting time to inherit the organization. I already led 2 or 3 of the sub teams within marketing at that time, and then assumed the role. So it's been about 3 years in the role, and the shift was mostly in title, not in responsibility. But it's certainly been a wild and fun 3 years in the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you think about the recent past, well, I mean, there's a lot I'm sure that has happened in your business like since the pandemic, but if you think about just like the last 6 months or so, I'm curious about what's really working for you guys.
So I would say a couple of things. One, so let me back up. EAB is an education, we're one of the leading education companies. We serve about 2,000 schools from grade school to grad school. The types of solutions we bring to our customers range from technology to research to outsource marketing and enrollment solutions. So we have a whole bunch of different solutions to a whole bunch of different audiences within education. Wow. So that's, I guess, kind of foundationally thing one. Thing two is our origins as a company are in best practice research. So we're from the overall company tree of corporate executive board and then advisory board. And we are the latest sort of expression of that company family of companies, which means that we have research at the core of our DNA. The reason I bring that up is we are a thought leadership forward marketing organization. And I sit in sort of a privileged position because there is so much research and insight and knowledge inside of the company that we are able to lead in our marketing with thought leadership and with insight. So that traditionally worked, and it worked exceptionally well through the pandemic when audiences needed true insight and needed information to move through a period of uncertainty. But that has always worked and continues to work. I think something in the last 6 months that I'm excited about is after 2 years of not having in-person events and not having in-person engagement, we've been able to return to in-person events in a successful way. And I think we had to get our muscle memory back a little bit, and we've had to redesign playbooks and go to that 5-foot level and look at all the operational details to get back to a place where we can serve above and beyond what's expected and bring kind of a discipline of service excellence to all of those events. But in the last 3 to 6 months, we've been able to come back to that place and really see some exceptional results and productivity from the events channel.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looked like, well, I saw on your LinkedIn, it looked like you had just done Connected for the first time since the pandemic, like roughly 4 months ago or so.
Yeah, and it was amazing. The energy of having, over 1,000 people together in one place, many of whom used to go to this event year after year, and then we made it virtual, obviously, during the pandemic. But just to have that energy and the hugs and the experience, all the, there's a lot of things that are lost in virtual. There were benefits to having virtual events, and obviously they scale faster and you can reach lots of people. But there's something that's really unique about being in person, and it was awesome to see the team bring everybody back together for Connected this year.
That's awesome. Is it mostly your customers that go there, or is it mostly prospects? Or
it's about 90% customers, 10% prospects.
Oh, that's nice.
We bring some of the people that are in pipeline to the event and recruit some prospects as well, but it's
Oh, my
mostly a
goodness.
customer event. Yeah.
I bet you any prospect that goes to that event is like, where do I sign?
Well, that's what we hope for. It's not quite that easy, but
Yeah. Cool. Are you, this is sort of a random question, but it made me think of it because you were doing these events for your customers. Do you guys do customer advisory boards, or are you familiar with customer advisory boards?
I am familiar. We have a couple of versions of programs like that. Most notably, we don't call it a customer advisor board. We actually call our customers partners, but that's neither here nor there. I guess within our student success business, we have an advisory council that we've been doing for, I guess, the better part of a decade. And it's a great way to get feedback and have really deep relationships with your customers and understand at a deeper level what their pain points are and where they want, solutions and to go, and just get advice in that sort of deep relationship way.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry, that was just a random tangent. But back to the events, I'm curious, what do you guys look at like post event to say, hey, this was a really, really good event, this was a medium good event, this was a poor event? Like, what are the metrics that you're looking at?
So it depends on the type of event. Obviously, every event has a different set of objectives and a different set of KPIs. And so it kind of depends on which type we're looking at. We have a rigorous approach to setting KPIs at EAB, and we look at all the metrics. But for something like Connected, which again is mostly a partner event, we look at a GPA, which is how we score the quality of a meeting. We obviously look at attendance rates. We look at penetration rates of that customer base. So how many of our customers sent at least one person to the event? We look qualitatively at all of the feedback and the scores. And then we look downstream at sort of the long-term impact on renewals and on kind of overall customer satisfaction. And then for our prospect events, post-event, we look at a bunch of things. And most immediately, we look at, are they setting up sales conversations? The MQL, or everybody's funnel is different. So I try to stray from industry specific terms, but are these events setting up sales conversations effectively? Are they influencing pipeline? Are they generating pipeline? So all the standard KPIs, but on top of that, we look at the quality of the event and the GPA every time to make sure that the content is resonating and the message is resonating, and that we look at service score too. We get 100% on our service score. We want to over deliver on the experience of each event.
Got it. So this one was a good one comparatively.
This past one was a great one. I think they've all been great, but this past one was great. Yeah,
people are excited to get back out and to meet.
They are. Yeah,
myself included. Like,
likewise. If I never had to get on another Zoom again, I wouldn't, honestly.
Right. Yeah. Are you guys back in the office? I know you're there today, but are the teams back?
We're back. Partial weeks. So it kind of depends on what day of the week. We're pretty busy on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and you'll get a smattering of folks on other days of the week. But it's definitely a hybrid model, and it works really well for most people. I think it gives people flexibility, but also ways to engage and develop relationships. I can't imagine what it would have been like to start your career in a hybrid or a virtual environment.
I know.
That makes me sound old.
Well, I mean, I think it would have been really challenging, honestly, especially, being like, because I'm thinking back to my, sort of first few years as a marketer and being around people and being able to just say, hey, come help me. Like, I would be like, doing something with CSS that was way over my head and just break a landing page completely. And it was slated to go live later in the day. It's like, help. And I would just like run over to the developers and they would help. And I would basically thank them up and down and buy them lunch.
Yeah. I mean, and I have some people on my team who are amazing at sort of replicating that experience in a virtual way through Slack and, taking on-demand videos where you can see the screen and you're pointing at things, and it almost is like that experience of getting in-person help. But personally, I don't think anything beats just kind of standing in someone's cube and talking about it. But again, now I sound old.
Well, I mean, it's incredibly hard now as a leader too, because I historically had been a huge fan of the management by walking around. Just like strolling the halls and the floors and just hearing things and talking to people. Yeah. That was like really the primary way that we would stay connected. And God bless my partner now, who is like amazing at doing that in a digital way. Like, he's amazing at, and many of our leaders now are just great at like monitoring the Slack channels and monitoring Asana and kind of like doing that in a digital way. how do you sort of stay connected with your team in a way that is like basically that you well, have you found anything that comes close to sort of management by walking around?
Honestly, no, I don't think so. I think holding ourselves to that standard in a hybrid environment is pretty hard.
Yeah.
But I think having really great and like intentional, well designed time with teams, we call them in days, is really important. So we try to do 4 all marketing in days each year, 2 in person, 2 virtual. And then I bring my leadership team together in person 4 times a year. We call it Spring Fest, Fall Fest, Winter Fest. I was got a name for everything marketing, but anyway. So I think that and those times have been, I would say, triple the productivity of that same group being on Zoom for, call it, 90 minutes and trying to brainstorm around big problems and innovation. It's really hard to do that kind of stuff over Zoom, even if you have the same people in the mix. So I do value a an intentionally designed in-person time. But now with everybody living everywhere, you really have to make the most of that time because people are flying in and got to respect people's calendars. And
So pre-pandemic, was your entire team local to the DC area, or did you have a lot of
majority, not entire, but majority. Yeah. And then also
too.
during the pandemic, we did 7 or 8 acquisitions in a period of 2 years. And so we acquired a bunch of teams whose original home bases were in other places. So for a multitude of reasons, we are now all over the country and everywhere.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
So let's talk about challenges a little bit. I'm curious about, some of the challenges that you guys are facing. And I would love it if we could use your framework and you could tell me like high level challenges, in the weed challenges, left brain challenges, right brain challenges.
Throwing it back at me. So I think honestly, probably the one that's most top of mind right now for me is it's getting harder to secure sales conversations, and thus to build strong pipelines and drive the bookings targets that we need to drive. There's so much noise out there, and I think it's just getting harder and harder to break into accounts. And you have to be extremely persistent. You have to have all the channels at your disposal. You have to multi-thread an account, and that's a lot of things for BDRs to handle. And it's a lot of things to have to do in a given week. And I think it's hard when you're facing sort of declining returns on the same level of activity.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think many organizations are facing. That's not specific to us. So that's a big one. And thankfully we have people that are really gifted on the team at learning new technologies quickly and deploying them quickly and pivoting. But that's something that's on my mind. And I think the other one I would mention is just like sales cycles are getting longer. I'm sure you've heard of the book Jolt. Everyone at EAB has been reading Jolt by Matt Dixon. He wrote The Challenger Sale. So this is all about how customer prospect indecision is on the rise. It's a really cool book. It drew on a study of like 2.5 million sales conversations that were analyzed, and it looked at what the highest performing salespeople were doing to overcome customer indecision. And anyway, it's a very interesting read. So on the marketing side of things, securing sales conversations is harder. And on the sales side of things, sales cycles are longer. And when we're losing, it's not really to competitors so much as to no decision or to delayed decision. So those are kind of 2 things that are on our collective commercial minds over here.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that book out, Jolt. I'm not familiar with it, though I am familiar with Challenger Sales. So I'll check
it's
that
good.
out.
There's also, there's a podcast and, articles that if you don't want to read the whole 300 pages or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I'll maybe do both, but we're seeing some of the same issues. And I'm curious, what do you chalk it up to? Do you think it's like a economy, like a recessionary type of a thing?
I think it's partially the economy. I mean, the book has a lot to say about the root causes, but there's a great quote. I might mangle it a little bit, but customers fear more the bad things that happen when they do something than the bad things that happen if they don't do something. So people are ultimately more comfortable missing out than they are messing up. Like that's like conceptually what the book is about.
Interesting.
And so obviously that has implications for product marketing and messaging and how you design sales decks and pitch decks, and how you kind of reduce the fear of decision in the sales process.
Cool. Are you able
Yeah.
to share anything that you guys are doing there specifically?
I would say the thing that worth sharing is that it's not just the sales team reading this book, it's the marketing team reading this book. This is a book about sales and sales cycles, but I would have said my second secret to success is I believe really deeply in sales and marketing alignment and in marketing leaders understanding and empathizing with salespeople, and having deep relationships in the sales organization. So I'd say the thing that we're doing is having the marketing team read this book. We did a number of trainings on the material in the book and are doing kind of workshops and applying the lessons from this into our messaging.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree with you in terms of the empathy between marketing and sales. And I think you have a unique perspective on it, having been in sales.
Failed in sales, but then I did
Well,
sales engineering for a couple of years. So
that makes it
I
even
got
easier to be empathetic, right?
Yeah, on the road with sales for 2 years.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right. Well, that has been really interesting. So let's transition. I'm curious just to hear your basically your abbreviated life story and some of the experiences that have shaped you. So like take us back to Lia the kid and just kind of take us through sort of high school, college. I know you landed at the current company shortly after, but what were some of the transformative experiences along the way?
How do I do this succinctly? All right. So I grew up, thing one is I grew up in the West Coast, and in Northern California. And I to free-spirited hippie parents. And so I was a free-spirited child, a lot of art, a lot of outdoor stuff. And that was great. However, I also have always wanted to do the thing that hasn't been done. And kind of take the unpopular path, which is not that this was that unpopular, but when I started looking at colleges, I decided I'll probably end up in Northern California, which didn't end up being true, but I assumed at the time that I would return. So I said, I'll apply to colleges up and down the East Coast, and ended up going to Georgetown, right here in DC, which was great, and did an internship with the corporate executive board, which is how I ended up at the advisory board after college. So there you go. So that was kind of how I arrived onto the East Coast. And I think because I had the background that I did and the childhood that I did, I ended up being extraordinarily pragmatic in my decision-making when it came to college. So I double majored. I did a Spanish and business major, which in retrospect is so boring. Like why I didn't study art history or, some cross-discipline something. I kind of regret that. But anyway, very pragmatic approach to choosing a major. I waited tables for 4 years in college and bartended. And so I partially paid my way through, and I think that was formative for sure. I worked 40 hours a week. And it was a great experience. And as everybody always says, waiting tables has a lot of applications later in life, for sure, being in the service industry. So that was that. And I spent 2 great years at the advisory board. And then I followed a boy to Cincinnati, and had a great marketing job with a startup inside of a bigger company for 3 years, where I got to run student recruitment for a diversity leadership program. So we designed these great programs for students of diverse background, and I was responsible for recruiting all the students and matching them to corporate sponsors. It was a super fun job. And we also it was a 5-person team, and we just ran the business ourselves. So that was very cool. And then I went to business school. So I decided that I wanted to broaden my exposure a little bit, went to UVA, to Darden. And unlike most of my peers who chose big firm consulting and investment banking and CPG if they were in marketing, I decided I had a passion for education and I wanted to go to an education startup. And I was stubborn about that. It was 2009. It was a terrible time to get a job, but put my foot down, found an education startup, and which was subsequently acquired by Blackboard. So that was kind of the lead up all the way through prior to coming to EAB.
I gotcha. Okay. So you were kind of with EAB or corporate advisory, like in college. You had an internship there. Then
I had an internship at the corporate executive board, which exposed me to, there were two different companies at the time, corporate executive board and advisory board. The internship exposed me to the advisory board. So when I was looking for a job after graduating college, which was also a terrible time to graduate and try to get a job, that was 2001. Because I was familiar with the family of companies, I ended up at the advisory board and did 2 years in the marketing and sales department there.
Oh, that's really interesting how you kind of started there as one of your first gigs, and then you went and experienced and then came back eventually.
I know.
That's really cool. I have some questions about that, but one of the things that jumped out, you mentioned that you regretted not doing like an art history major or something like that. Are there any other things that you can think of that maybe you don't regret? Like that's a pretty strong word, but that you would do differently in retrospect?
In terms of my career specifically?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, hindsight's 2020. It's kind of hard to say. I did flirt with big firm consulting coming out of business school, but I just didn't think that my heart would have been in it. And I wasn't sure I could be passionate about it. So I think that was probably the right decision for me. So I'm not so sure, but a piece of advice that I do give people and something that I think I did well is I always tell people, if you can take some risks and explore the adjacencies of the career that you want to do, you're going to be better at whatever it is you're doing. So my two examples of that are when I was offered a job at the startup right after Darden, they offered me two different jobs. They offered me the marketing manager job and they offered me the sales operations job, like RevOps, right? And I kind of took a look at both offers. They were equivalent compensation. And I chose the sales operations job. So that's something I haven't done. And I want to go see what that's all about. Mm-hmm. And I basically spent a year just in the dark depths of Salesforce and in reporting. And that has made me a better marketer. And it's made me more fluent in how that core system works, even in, for points in time when I wasn't using the system. And then the second example is when I came back to the advisory board and they offered me a job as the launch salesperson for a new product. And I told them, I was like, I'm not going to be very good at this. And I was right, but it's neither here nor there. I did spend that next 2 years on the road. And that was the byproduct of choosing the thing that I was not sure about, and that was not my core skill set. And both of those things have made me a much better marketer than I would have been if I had tried to stay on the straight path the whole time. So that's not a direct answer to your question, but it is a piece of advice that I give people.
No, that's good advice. That's definitely good advice. And I think that especially for younger people, and especially for marketers or aspiring marketers to get a taste of sales or even sales ops and rev ops, like I think that can be hugely helpful, because like I'm just thinking back on my own journey, and which started as a salesperson and then came into marketing. And so I've always just like a question that some marketers don't think to ask. It's like, cool, we got 30 conversions. Well, like, let me see the form submission data. Like, where is it? It's in Salesforce. And so like, unless somebody has that experience of like digging through the depths of Salesforce, they don't really know how the form submission data comes in or what hidden fields get pushed along with it and what have you.
You got to be in the weeds of the systems, weeds of the data.
Weeds in the systems. Yeah. I definitely, I enjoy a little bit of time in the Southern hemisphere there now and again.
Yeah.
Cool, Leah. Well, this has been awesome. I want to be cognizant of your time. We've just got one last thing to do, which is the lightning round, where I ask you just a couple of quick questions and you give me your shoot from the hip answer. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Question number one. I think I know the answer to this, but if you were to start a side hustle, what would that side hustle be?
How would you know the answer to this?
Because I
Oh,
think it's
you think I'm going to say I'm going to write a book? Okay. Well, maybe. The other the other side hustle is I've always imagined opening a like coffee shop wine bar. So that is totally far afield from what I am doing today. But
yeah.
I love the communal energy and the artistic energy and just like having a place to go. And I always have had my favorite places. This was probably informed. My first 4 jobs were in coffee shops, but I've always dreamed of opening my own. So maybe one day.
Cool. Very cool. I was not expecting that.
No, if you had anticipated that would have been weird.
So question number 2, top 2 or 3 most influential reads or authors.
From a marketing perspective,
Anything that comes to mind. Anything that's been really influential for you.
All right. Well, I'll give a couple that are top of mind. It's a little bit of recency bias here. But on the marketing front, there's a company out of Chicago called Orbit Media, and seen their founder speak a couple of times. And their blog, which is on content marketing and digital marketing, is one of the best I've ever read. They practice what they preach. They give you the most practical, in the weeds advice, but they explain how things work and why it matters. I think they just do a really exceptional job. Almost every time I read their blog, I forward it to someone on the team and say, hey, read this. Are we doing this? Etc. Another current source from a marketing perspective is we recently partnered with Sixth Sense, and I think their resources and their perspectives on marketing, I think they're at the forefront of thinking about and talking about marketing. And I love all the content they put out there. The book that Lotney couldn't probably mispronounced her name a little bit. No forms, no spam, no cold calls. Is a must-do read for any marketer today. It's exceptional. So, but it's just their blogs, their content's awesome.
Nice.
So those are 2 that come to mind on the marketing front.
Very good. All right, cool. And we will include links to those in the show notes. Cool. And then third is what do you do to avoid burnout, or how do you blow off steam?
Yeah. How do I blow off steam is different than how do I avoid burnout. But I'm a runner, and I picked up my pandemic hobby was tennis. So I'm not very good at it, but it's like my favorite hour of the week. And it is a great way to blow off steam. And I'm getting better slowly.
It's so much fun. I love tennis.
It's so much fun. I'm sad that it took me this many decades and years to arrive at tennis. Anyway, I think in terms of avoiding burnout, I have a lot more to say on that topic, which we don't have time for. But I think you have to, first of all, you have to manage your calendar. It will manage you, especially in a matrix organization. You have to be extraordinarily picky about what meetings you take and what you say yes to. And I always advise my teams, don't fall into the trap of more meetings means you're more important. In actuality, like space in your calendar is the way that strategic work and strategic thinking gets done. So like, do not fall into the meetings trap. And then the other thing is you have to give yourself grace, and you have to give your teams grace, and you have to empower your teams to do the same with their people. Because it's one thing if I believe that people should just take care of themselves, and I believe in kind of a whole person and in mental wellness. But if that doesn't trickle down to my entire organization, then I'm not doing a good job empowering my leaders to carry that same message down into the organization. And there are so many people that are dealing with burnout and mental health and mental wellness issues right now. So I think this is an important topic to me.
Yeah, maybe we'll do another episode just on that.
I could talk about that one for a while.
Cool, Lia. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time here today. I think the listeners are going to love this one for sure. If you like this, please drop us a like, a comment, or share this with a friend. And Lia, let everybody know if they want to learn more about you or EAB, where you would direct them.
To learn more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, Lia Davidson. And if you want to learn more about EAB, check us out, EAB.com.
That's a great domain.
We're in the middle of redesigning our website. New one should be launched the next month or 2. TBD. So
nice.
yeah.
Cool, Leah. Well, thank you so much for your time here today. You enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. You too.
We'll
Thanks,
talk
Chris.
soon. All right.
Bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at performancemarketinginsiders.com. This podcast is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the performance agency that makes you smarter, offering AI-driven search, paid social, analytics, and conversion rate optimization for financial services, health, B2B, and SaaS brands that know. Hey guys, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, you can get a performance marketing assessment for free. And this isn't some cookie cutter automated report. It lays out detailed, specific things you can do right now to unlock limitless growth and nirvana level personal satisfaction. To claim your free assessment, just go to performancemarketinginsiders.com/audit and you'll have your customer report within just a few days.